Nebraska Senators joined other Republicans today to voice support for Israel as the conflict with Hamas continues.
Senator Pete Ricketts also spoke with the media about the conflict and the possibility of U.S. troops getting more involved. 6 News' Joe Harris reports on his comments tonight.
We must continue to stand alongside them as they take on this war to destroy Hamas.
A group of Senate GOP members, including Nebraska Senators Pete Ricketts and Deb Fischer, have a clear message. The U.S. must continue backing Israel during its war with Hamas.
We need to provide the Israeli government with support that it needs to defend its own territory and to defend its people.
As of Monday, there were still 13 Americans missing in the conflict. Some of them may be among the hostages being held in Gaza. On Wednesday, 6 News asked Ricketts if he's concerned that Israel may be putting those Americans in harm's way as they retaliate against Hamas with rounds of deadly airstrikes.
If there are Americans at risk, they are put at risk because of Hamas, and Hamas must bear that responsibility. And remember, this is a terrorist organization that is putting its own people in harm's way. They are putting Palestinian women and children and using them as human shields.
The Gaza Strip averages just under 16,000 people per square mile. Its population density 4 times more than Omaha's. And Gaza residents say they have nowhere to run. The U.S. currently has 2 aircraft carrier groups in the Mediterranean to try and discourage militant groups like Hezbollah from joining the war against Israel. But Ricketts does not believe U.S. troops will fight in this conflict.
If maybe our military members are needed to help rescue hostages, I can see that we get involved in that way. But frankly, at this point, I think Israel can handle it, even if the war widens into Hezbollah on the Lebanese border.
On your side, Joe Harris.